Dang, my last video cut out. I had a phone call and it just, yep, there it went. So yeah, I'll just continue with where I was going with this. I've been contemplating some things about like, why do we divide and conquer, and like, why do we separate ourselves into groups and like form an identity and like get attached to that identity and like see in that hive mind, and like, because I've seeing it like everywhere, like in different places and different groups, and I've been seeing my own participation in certain ways, like where we do kind of get caught up in that, but it's sometimes like like seeing it everywhere outside myself, it's like way more obvious, and like then seeing how it relates to me, it's like way more subtle, but it's there and it's relatable. So yeah, if that makes sense. And I can give you examples of that too. But how do we usurp our power? By like kind of like just being in that victim mentality, and either like making someone a savior or a villain. Because yeah, like that's what, like when we're projecting our power onto someone else, like that's usually what we see, right? Is a savior or a villain. So like a hero savior or a villain tyrant. And so like seeing those two things like on either sides of the divide and conquer, like we're, yeah, like the people who love him think he's a hero, the people who hate him think he's a villain, and like, and how both of those sides are thought to look at each other as villains and then themselves as heroes. Like, so it's like how you identify with certain things, and it's just so funny, like in certain ways, like how like some of that perception totally, like it's accurate for the experience and for that, like for the feelings and trauma of like those groups and individuals that are in it. Like, so it's kind of have compassion for like how they're feeling and what they're experiencing, but like seeing it on other levels too, like where it's just like an archetypal program, and just something that's siphoning our energy in certain ways, because like we consent, like, yeah, to be in these wounds of pain, or like playing out these stories in these ways, like seeing it in those ways too. Like, yeah, so it's kind of funny. But like, I feel like he's a perfect savior for people who want him to be a savior. I feel like he's a perfect villain for those who want him to be a villain. And both perceptions are right from where they are, like from what they're experiencing, from what they've been shown, from like what they choose to project on him, or like what they choose to receive from, and what they're taking in. Because like it's all up to us, like what we choose to take in. If we want to see him as a hero, we'll go like look for those stories. If we want to see him as a villain, we'll go look for those stories, because that's what we want to believe, you know, like, and we're gonna like try and just keep enforcing that reality, that belief, that identity, because we're so attached to it. We don't know anything else, or we feel like, yeah, we're a slave to that. We become a slave to that. So yeah, and I'm just seeing that, like those kinds of things in certain ways, like, yeah, like let's see beyond the programming, like, because I know there's layers and layers and layers of programming, like seriously, even for like us truthers and people who like have awakened to some of the higher dimensions, like we're still being programmed or susceptible or vulnerable to certain programs, like getting hooked into programs, like through like different mechanisms that like flatter our ego, or like maybe could put us into fear or survival mode, or trigger a wound, like that has to do with like protecting ourselves, or with survival, with, yeah, just any kind of karma like that we have, that we're like, yeah, that we haven't healed or integrated or dissolved or shifted yet. And it's like, it's just a bunch of different patterns, really. That's what karma is. And then it's like how we choose to look at it as well. And like we're the ones that judge it and like complain about it and scream about it and get mad at it, but then we keep just doing it again, like. And so like I feel like that maybe there's value in knowing that like even the shadow stuff that comes up and looks really terrible and ugly, and the like the hurt and the fighting and the battles and stuff, like, and the anger and the sadness and the grief and all that, that's exactly right. It's part of the healing process and the cleansing process and like the purification process. Like it's all like being like emerging now, like, and it's surfacing, and it's like we can see it all now, and it doesn't look very pretty. Like neither does like chicken pox or measles, like when our body's going through that cleansing process where it's removing toxins from the system. And it just has like all of these little signs and symptoms from the outside that look awful and don't feel very good. And like we kind of judge those things as bad. We want to cover them up, or we want to like make them as comfortable as possible, or not, or avoid it. It's like, but it's something that needs to be like, welcomed and embraced and invited and like allowed to be. So that's kind of hard and tricky too, like to allow all that to be. And then just how do we support ourselves through these cleansing processes and alchemy, like, and like, understand that it is like a part of ourselves, and just take care of ourselves, support ourselves, allow other people, allow others that we see like going through hard times or maybe like acting out. Just know that like it's a part of their like journey and like their experience, and it's like we're birthing ourselves into being, and it's like birth is messy, death is messy, life is messy, sex is messy, it's all messy, creating is messy, destruction, the tower collapsing is messy, like, but it's like, so let's stop trying to sanitize it and avoid it and smooth it over. Like, let's look her in the eye, and let her like express what she needs to express, and so she can heal it, feel it, reveal it, and just be free from it, like, and honor it all and integrate it, to transform it, transmute it, like be with it, like, that's like what I'm being asked, to see it as that, like, even though it looks like ass and like, like a disaster sometimes, like a dumpster fire, but so just have compassion for that too, and like realize I don't own all of it. It's not all mine, and it's not all mine to carry, and then it just looks at different ways for different people, and it's like all in the perspective too, where it is like it is for us, it's not happening to us, but like still have that compassion because it's hard and it's been brutal, and it's like our journey through hell. It is like really gonna make us, like, walking through the fires of hell really does show us what we're capable of, and it does turn the lead into gold, and it is the thorn and the crown, like it does and like help us express the true self through like impressing like this upon us, so it's interesting how it works that way, like in the thorns and the softness of the rose at play, and the mud and the lotus and everything, like all is not separate, like all is related and connected, and it's all reflected and projected, and that's how we keep creating things. And so like, even though we've been well and truly fucked with, which is kind of ironic, like just so we can learn how we're giving our power away in certain ways, even though like it's there's not all good intentions for sure. Like that's why we need to be clear with our own intentions. And so I realized that with doing my best to understand like how to allow other people their perceptions, and how like to change my own perceptions and be aware of my own perceptions, and be like willing to change my mind about things, and open to new perceptions, and challenge my own beliefs, and confront and question like my own beliefs, and seeing where, like, in certain ways where I got really defensive, in certain ways where I didn't expect it to be like so defensive about something, where I actually saw like where I was protecting like an aspect of myself, or like what I thought was wrong about me, maybe. Yeah. And so just like looking at like little things like that, where there's like just tons of things every single day, and every single thing at play, to like really see that it's always, and it's always related to always. And like, yeah, it's just so funny just to be aware of certain things that trigger us, or certain things that hold a charge, or certain things that stay with us or feel like they get stuck in our body. Like, to really kind of pay attention to that so that they can be moved or shifted and released and freed and integrated, and not like stuffed up, suppressed and repressed, and like, and then create disease, dis-ease. So remedy is expression, like shining that light, bringing that light, bringing that energy like to the surface, like creating something with it, feeling what we're feeling, listening, asking to see what we need to see, asking where maybe we could be more clear and receive the signals that we need to hear and see and be aware of. Like, because there's a lot of interference, and some of that interference comes from ourselves, but some of that interference is external interference too. And so if we can ask help to cut through the interference and become clear, that's so helpful. So helpful. I've realized that, like, wow. And just in the last couple days, because I wasn't like feeling as clear, but like I was willing, and I was like, okay, like just going with this, and kind of like I'm starting to embrace like just the unknown, and like just acknowledge the fear of the unknown too, and just like, yeah, all of that, and realize how much power is in that, to let go of that, like let go of the fear of the unknown and just let it be unknown, like, because that's where the magic happens. And yeah, stepping out of the comfort zone, and like just knowing, yeah, that like spirit is in charge too, even though like I kind of want to control things from my end of the universe or my little own world, but like really just knowing that, okay, there's only so much like I can do with certain things, so really what can I choose, and like just give it, like just let go and let God, and just remembering that. And then like the perception of remembering too, like the being on the 3D like kind of like AI algorithm, as like being those little cutouts of ourselves, being cut off from everything, and not being clear, and not being like, yeah, it's the false light. And then like then remembering to, like, when we reconnect with everything that we are, and everything around us, and yeah, all our whole selves, like everything, like remember we're part of all that is, like, and then that like helps crystallize our vision. And so I was kind of seeing that too, just like with that, just playing with that meditation and asking to see more into it, like, and like, because I knew it was loaded, because it had so much symbolism in it, like with the things that I saw in it. Like I was like, wow, that's so super potent and so just magnificent, like the vision that it was, and the gift that it was, to help show me like certain things I really got to be more clear about. And so like a lot of the things, yeah, so it was like be clear with your intention, and be clear with reception, like so how can we do that? Like it's receptivity. So yeah, receptivity is part of allowing like it all to making the space for reciprocal exchange, like letting it go, so letting it be, so it can become what it will be. And like, yeah, if we're fighting against certain reality, then like kind of like giving our energy away, like, yeah, in certain ways. So it's kind of interesting, and everyone gets to see that in their own ways, like how we individually operate. and how we contribute and how we participate and how we get to discern and get to learn how to navigate. And like we get to do that through making mistakes and through this play, through the play of our relationships. And we get to play all these different characters, and we get to play like the bitch and the hero and the savior and the guru and the teacher and the asshole, you know, for each other. So it's kind of funny. We all get to play a villain, and yeah, someone that's like beloved and innocent. Yeah, because we all are that, and we all get to be that for each other. So it's just kind of funny to look at that. And so, like, and it is personal and it is impersonal, and it's just all of it. So hopefully that helps, like, to look at things like that, like where we are a lot more powerful than we have been taught to believe or perceive. And so if we can be open to that receptivity, like, we have access to everything that we need, and we can like get that clarity and like some amazing visions and like exactly all the answers that we need, and like just move forward, and then the faith and the trust, and then all of our resources that we have to claim, all of our allies, our friends and our guides, like in every single way, all of our relations like really offer something to us, and we just need to ask and like and show up for it and be willing to receive it. So receptivity, what do we want to receive, and are we willing to show up to receive it? And really like, yeah, are we open to receive it? Are we making the room to receive it? Because we could say, yes, I want to receive this, but like if we're holding on to something else, maybe we're not opening to receive it, and we think we're we want to receive something in a certain way, and when it comes, it doesn't look how we thought it's going to look, and so we don't want to receive it, and so we're not being receptive, or we're not clearing the reception to receive, like in those ways. But like, yeah, it's all about like time and place, I guess, divine timing, divine order, and like really being present to understand these things. And like, so yeah, like don't get locked into a dogma, because like, yeah, it's gotta be practice as a living energy, because like it's always changing, and like yeah, if we just say it's one thing, it's a paper cutout again. It's not living, it's not crystallized vision. So like, yeah, we're limited perception. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense too. And like, yeah, if anyone ever wants like any clarity or has any questions on what I'm sharing or offering, like please ask me questions. And if you want me to clarify like what it is I'm expressing, because sometimes we don't know like exactly what's going to help it be clear for someone else, like, because we all have such different perceptions about things and different ways of relating what we see and perceive and how we describe, like, and it's the best we can do with like language sometimes and with words, but like if we can listen with our hearts too and relate, then maybe we can like translate or go beyond what the words mean and really hear or receive the message. Yeah, like, yeah, and there's just, that's huge too in so many ways. Sometimes, haven't you noticed like somebody will say something or you'll say something, and at first, on first glimpse, maybe it'll look like one thing, but if we look at it deeper, it's so many things, like, and it's so much deeper than we could first see. So I could tell you dive deeper, or allow it to speak to us, reveal itself in certain ways through our own irrational intelligence, like where that's the language of the soul and the psyche and the heart, where it relates everything, it connects everything, because it's all a circle and it corresponds to everything. And so it's all the relationships together. And it's just like, yeah, that's how I see a lot of things. And so that's not clear to a lot of people sometimes. Like when I try to express or, yeah, explain where I'm coming from, sometimes it doesn't compute or equate, like, or, yeah, make sense to others who are more in a linear A to B reality, where it's like the double arcs for me. It all connects and reflects and projects and connects, and yeah, all that. So yeah, it's all of it anyways. And so the alchemy that I got to see is, yeah, I wasn't clear in my intention, so I really wasn't clear in my perception either, or my reception of what I was resourcing or sourcing like my will from, I guess you could say, maybe. And I'm still looking into these things and seeing more deeply into these things, and so I'll just describe or offer them as best I can and ask what wants to be said about this for the highest good. For our highest good. So yeah, I've been contemplating these things, like about why we see the things that we see, and I could see like why certain things were happening and why we're getting so defensive and hostile towards each other. And I know some of it has to do with the astrology too. Like Eris is one of the archetypes that likes to make mischief, and I can see her coming up in my space too, like the one that wants to scrap and the one that wants to, the one that kind of gets amused by these little fights and things, and wants to kind of compare who's right and who's lesser than. And so like see that archetype going on and being activated. And so yeah, what I felt I was offering was a different perspective, because it seemed like it's such a funny post, and it was just like, oh, here's my opportunity, like to talk to somebody who doesn't think like me and to see what happens. And so like going into it like with my own assumptions too, and like with what I witnessed over the last couple months about this person, like it really did color my lens of perception, and like already like kind of distort my own agendas. Like I didn't even see like what my own agendas were really, but I knew like it was a pop quiz for me, and I was like, okay, I'm willing to receive this, and I know it's for my learning. So yeah, I'm willing to show up for it, and we'll see what happens, and like I'll do my best with it. And so I offered something that I thought was like just for like consideration, and like, oh, here's, if you look at it in this way, maybe it'll be different. But like, yeah, knowing that sometimes we really get like attached to like what we're seeing and what we want to believe and what we want to feel, and just for our own protection, like we're unable to like receive anything else, and we go into our defense mechanisms. And so I understood that there's going to maybe be a little bit of backlash, but maybe I thought like maybe there's some room for cooperation, or maybe like some kind of compromise that otherwise wouldn't be seen, or maybe it is an opportunity to see what we can see here. And so like that's what I was willing to receive it as. And so even before like I got back on my phone, I could feel the attack energy. And it was like, you know what, like I was already removed. I removed myself from it and knew that I wasn't going to take it personally, because I was coming from a place of neutrality already, or so I thought I was. And so like I felt like, well, there's nothing for me to defend here, because like I'm not defending like what they're against. And so maybe I can like really jump in here and like maybe, yeah, we can see what makes sense. But like I realized too that like I was already making assumptions that she was already deep in her program, and she was going to believe whatever she was going to believe anyway, and so that no matter what she was going to come back with at me, it was just all her programming. And so like I went in with that attitude, and like I didn't really like see that at the time, like where, yeah, like I didn't value, like I didn't value what she had to contribute, because I already went in with the assumption that she's just deep in her program. She doesn't know what she's seeing. She doesn't know, like I didn't validate like the experience in her own perception, even though like I know from certain things of witnessing certain things, she is in her, I see that she's in her pain body, and like coming from like wounded, like a wounded reaction, like, you know, like, yeah, I've that's just my like, yeah, feeling about it. And so I know she has good hearts, and I know this person like has her good medicine and gifts and like and strengths and potential, you know. But I also like, yeah, it was disappointing to see her limitations, like in certain ways, like where I've seen how beautiful she is, but then I can see how ugly she is too, like with how uh, she's mocked people, and like, you know, just to build up her own armor and defenses. And I think maybe we've all done that too, but just like seeing it like being reflected in her like that, like just kind of turned me off and repelled me, and I didn't really see how I was doing it myself, like in certain ways, even though it seems justified, like my own ways of being like that, they seem justified to me, and like maybe like to someone else they look just as ugly, or yeah, all of that. So that was humbling to see, and yeah, I'm glad I got to see that about me. Like, so like I didn't see this till a little while after, but, like, yeah, I got a lot of clarity, a lot of hindsight, a lot of insights. And so yeah, it was just like a lot of knee-jerk reactions and assumptions, and that's when things aren't clear either, you know. Like, that doesn't make for clear communication at all. Clear reception, or make the room for cooperation or reciprocal exchange. And that is like the unfortunate thing, is like that's when we're cut off from each other, when we don't make the room like for both perspectives, or for another perspective, or for another experience. That's when we're cut off from abundance, from prosperity, from our hearts, from like the well that holds all things. And so that's what I realized too. It's like, wow, because like I didn't feel like there was room for my perspective, and she didn't feel like there was room for her perspective. And so like there was no room for cooperation or exchange. And that was a reflection of the wound. Like, and that's how it came out, and that's how it was projected on both ends. And it was so profound to see that. So, in a lot of different ways. Like, and it was like, obviously, to me, it was way, way more extreme with her reaction towards me, because it was like, she pretty much told me to fuck off, and yeah, just called me some other names and stuff, like, where I didn't feel like what I had offered, that it was warranted, like, but I knew that it was their knee-jerk reaction. And so like I kind of knew that it was coming anyway, because I could sort of feel it, like, oh boy. And I just kind of expected it. I kind of did expect it. So maybe in a way I was like, I was already prepared for what it was going to be, like, and so it was kind of like easy to kind of like let it roll off my back in certain ways, like where I knew like it wasn't about me, you know, like it was just about protecting, you know, their identity. It's like protecting the identity. It really wasn't about me, but I was a threat to their identity, or to their being, or something, like survival in some way, because like just deep in those survival archetypes, like, and then everything is like an attack or whatnot, like if it goes against, yeah. So it's kind of funny, like seeing that. Yeah, so strange. And so I've been wondering, like, how do you get through? How do we get through to people that are deep in that? And it's so, and obviously it's not like dismissing them or telling them you're just being programmed and just look at that, look at your program, because that, like, that's going to piss them off more. Like, if you're going to tell people the truth, you got to make them laugh, or else they're going to want to kill you. And that's kind of what it felt like. Even though I was speaking my truth from what I perceived, and I was offering it, like, it was like, don't throw pearls before swine, because they're going to trample you. And so that's what I kind of felt like, but it was like I used a strategy though, where I was already like, I kind of dodged it anyways, like, but then and I realized in certain ways too, like, or in a way, like, I felt justified, because she proved my point, like, she proved my exact point that I was like just offering, like, and then in a certain way I could see how I had the opportunity to feed back into that, like, and what it was like, these divide and conquer strategies, like, are meant to, like, usurp our power of unity, and they're meant to bind our attention and take us away from our true intentions. And I was expressing that, like, with not even realizing that I needed to see that until later, like, and like exactly that, because I could see it on one level, but I couldn't see it on a deeper multi-level. And so, but I got to see that later, like, where the divide and conquer strategies, where we were being pitted against each other, where, like, these things that we were arguing were meant to suck us in, to bind our attention and take us away from our true intentions. And so, like, her true intention is to pray for people and for unity, and my true intention is to pray for people and to create unity. And it's kind of funny, because we think the way that we're doing it, we're both right and the other is wrong. And then, like, that's divide and conquer through that, like, thing. And so it's so funny, like, how it presented itself like that, like, and how I got to see it, and, like, how we were both projecting shit onto each other, and we were both reflecting shit back to each other. And so it's just so just trippy, weird, funny, like that. And there's so much more I want to say about it, because it was just the whole thing, like, probably only was like 10-15 minutes interaction total, like, with a couple messages back and forth, but it was so loaded and it had so much in it. There was lots of energy packets in it, and just so much that I needed to see, because, like, even though it was only like this kind of limited interaction, it was exactly, like, not as limited as I thought it was limited. And it's kind of funny how, seeing it that way too, how it, like, it reflected a lot of stuff that I've been wanting to know about and I was curious about. And so it just gave it all to me, like, in that little packet, like, of stuff right there. And, like, just to see so many things, and, like, it didn't, like, it wasn't my intention to go piss them off and have them, like, have it end with, like, fuck off, kind of, like, like, it wasn't. But and I haven't had that happen, like, man, I don't even remember, like, I'm sure it's happened once before, but I don't remember it ever happening like it did. Like, I usually don't have those kinds of encounters, like, that are really hostile, like, in hostile waters, like, but, like, I guess it was just the right conditions for it, because of, like, the trauma and the fear-based and, like, programs and intentions. And so, like, in a way, some of me, like, was a little shocked about it. Like, I could feel, like, a lot of, like, anger and hate and fear and, like, really just poison venom in it. And just wow. And just kind of really, I already kind of expected that in a way, because it's just been hostile, like, really hostile vibes. So but it just made me want to laugh though. Like, I freaking laughed, and rather than like got upset about it. And it was amusing to me, like, because it was so extreme, like, the reaction was so extreme. And so, like, I got to pay attention to see, like, okay, like, let's not, like, fall into my own trap and, like, make myself right and make her lesser than, like, by laughing at her and, like, and judging, like, where she's coming from and stuff. and like holding those multiple perspectives too, like seeing that part of me wanted to like laugh at her and like make her wrong and lesser than, so you just proved my point, like, you know. And yeah, but I was just like, okay, I see, I'm not going to feed into that. Like, okay, thank you for showing me that. Like, I can rise above that. Like, I don't have to, like, yeah, get sucked into that, because really, like I said before, putting ourselves on a pedestal, we're not really raising ourselves up. We're putting ourselves on the floor, you know, like in a black hole. So like it feels good for a little bit. Like we can maybe get these little highs of endorphins or like self-righteous hits of dopamine, you know, like, but then like later on we don't, yeah, we're depleted, and like that was just a false high, that was a false light, and like it really takes from us and then puts us back in that cycle of where, yeah, we need to feed our ego again. And so like seeing that kind of stuff, how that works, like the desire and fear cycle, like where we do need to make someone wrong, and then like maybe it does feel good to like say fuck you to someone, but then like, and maybe we do get a rush from that high of that power of like, yeah, I told them, but like maybe later like it doesn't feel, something feels like something's been, yeah, taken, or I don't know, like not, yeah, it just feels dishonored or something, and yeah, and then there's like a new pattern, yeah, so that we have to like perpetuate, yeah, to get those highs again, or yeah, those are the good things to look at anyways. Yeah, when people get joy or pleasure from treating people, yeah, as lesser than, like we all like to blow off steam, and like we all can make fun of each other and ourselves, and that's like, you know, that's in that's good alchemy right there. Like we should laugh at ourselves and each other because they're so funny, like we're so funny, and there's so much to laugh about, like when it's, because it is ridiculous sometimes, especially when we take ourselves so seriously and we do take everything personally, or you know, like it is the best thing to do is to laugh, but like, yeah, sometimes it's like look and see, like, yeah, what, you know, like what our intention really is too, and like, yeah, just be responsible for it, own it, and if we like, if it feels good to us, like, okay, like that's what it is, and like, you know, like maybe it works for us for a certain time, and then maybe like later we see how it works against us, you know, like that's just how it goes. And so like it's just good to pay attention to certain things, like how we do feed our ego and like feed the disease, and because we want to be right rather than like be peace or create peace, yeah. So like in certain ways, like where I could have chosen to go make a big deal out of it, like tell my husband, like, guess what happened to me, and you know, talk down or make this person lesser than, because like I was feeling like I was attacked, or like, you know, or I wanted to be better than, you know, like I chose not to get sucked into that either, but rather than like, yeah, take that approach, I just wanted to share a little bit with him and just say, oh yeah, I just like had an interesting, like, you know, thing come up for me, and got to see, you know, a little deeper into certain things, and it was interesting, and instead of like going into it like making it like more of a drama, like, and I was proud of myself for being impeccable that way, like, because like, yeah, I knew what was true for me, and so I was able to choose that, and yeah, be true to that for me. So, and I see too, like, how this person got triggered, because yeah, I totally did dismiss and devalue like what they were saying, because like I didn't take it seriously. I didn't take them seriously because they haven't been taking me seriously, and like, yeah, just the mockery and stuff. But dang, I got a tickle in my throat. I didn't have compassion, or I didn't make room. I didn't see the value of what they were saying between the lines. I didn't read between the lines, even though maybe from the place they're operating is from their program. I totally didn't see or read between the lines that they've been hurt and they've been traumatized and they've lived through like some terrible violence. And I kind of forgot that about her, like, because it's kind of hard to remember that, like, when I see a beautiful person like that is so full of self-confidence. Sometimes, like, it's hard to remember that what kind of life they've had and the life they've lived. And I guess I could take that too as, where I was kind of making posts a couple of weeks ago or a week or two ago about understand what unconscious assumptions, like how they can activate programs, like when we make assumptions about people. They activate unconscious programs. And so, like, because I was feeling like, a little triggered about, like, just being seen, like, because of the race baiting and stuff that was going on. Like, about, like, the white privilege and, like, that kind of, like, that cult programming that was happening. Like, I was a little defensive about that and trying to, like, bring awareness to that, like, that, like, just because I'm, like, colored skin doesn't mean you know what kind of life I've had and what I've lived, you know? And then, like, I realized that too, like, that goes for everyone, like, seriously, in more ways than one. And, like, I already knew that on one level, but then, like, I got to be reminded of it again, like, by remembering, oh, just because this person looks, like, so put together and, like, doesn't mean that they are, like, and they are deeply wounded because of the trauma and how they've been traumatized. And that doesn't, like, excuse behavior or, like, or label her as a victim or anything. But I can see now, like, why she had the reaction that she does, and, like, why maybe she's chosen her to attach certain things to her identity for safety, security, protection, and, like, just what she had to do to survive. And so, like, now I see that in a deeper way, and now, like, that I see that, my perception's a little clearer, and my intention's a little more clear, and my reception's a little more clear. Like, that's a better place, like, to source and offer, and I guess operate from, or, act from. And, like, where I didn't see that before, I didn't see the trauma, all I saw was the anger and, like, the mockery, you know, like, and like, the opposition. That's all I saw before. I didn't see her suffering, like, I didn't. And that's, like, I wrote a little piece about that the other day, about how little simple but complex beliefs can divide and polarize to the extreme, and how it shuts our hearts down, and we're unable to see that the other is deep in their suffering. And I wrote that before this incident happened, and then it was immediately, like, drawn to my attention, like, oh, that's, like, and, like, all of that stuff, like, because all those words were for me, and, like, all those words were for me to see. But, like, if I would have looked at her words too, like, and read between the lines of what she wasn't saying instead of dismissing. I mean, like, it's kind of discernment, like learning discernment. What's part of the program and what can tell me about what program might be operating here, instead of, like, just dismissing the whole thing as, no, you're just a bot and you're controlled by AI, and, like, you just want to cling to your beliefs, and you're the enemy, like, kind of, like, because that's what the divide and conquer strategy has been showing me, like. But, like, I know that she's more than that too, and so that's why I've been wanting to see deeply into this, like, because I know there's so much more to it, and there's so much more we're not seeing, or we haven't been able to see, but that is being revealed, and will be revealed, and is being revealed through our seeing, through our willingness to see it. So just like, there's so many things that I got from that interaction, and everything, like, probably just about every single thing that I've been, like, really trying to process and assimilate and integrate was just in that interaction. That was, like, the perfect example and the perfect quiz, like, to show me like what love really is, and what unity really is, and what allowance is, and what like making room, receptivity is, like to make room for that other, for that third perspective, like just with ourselves, like how that process of the impersonal and the personal, so the third point of view. Also, like when we're in a group dynamic, or like when it's me and you, that's we, you know, like yeah, holding that space so we can have our own perspective, holding that space so the other can have their perspective, and that's how we cooperate. And that's like what I've been like so trying to see, like how do we do this, like, and it was just like, and so I'm willing to take that and work with that and play with that and receive that and honor that, like with that lesson and that gift that was given. And it wasn't like the most comfortable gift either, and it like made some waves, and I totally felt like a hate like come at me, and I totally needed to shake it off after, even though it like really didn't, like I didn't agree to it, so it was like I didn't take it personally, and so in a lot of ways like it just bounced off me. But in some ways like I felt some of the energetic like poison of it, like, and it really did, like, man, it was intense, like wow. And so I had to shake that off, and I decided like instead like to like fight back or whatever, be defensive, or like make fun of her for whatever, like in my little snide like ways that I, you know, sometimes do in my own mind, like with my own stories, like, because sometimes it just makes us feel like, you know, empowered, but it's not like really, you know what I'm saying. But like instead of like making her lesser than, I was totally paying attention to like, okay, like this is what it is, like I don't want to do that. I don't want to make her lesser than or me lesser than, even if like she did like totally overreact and like yeah, tell me to fuck off and call me names, and then like immediately like unfriend and block me, like yeah, it was just like that's okay, like that's okay that happened, you know, like that's, I'm okay with that, like I totally am okay with that. And like I don't take it as like something about me, like I'm not worthy or whatever. And it's okay, like I feel grateful that she gave, like that we were able to share that or like be that for each other. And like I have no idea, like she can choose what, and like hopefully she receives all she needs from it and all she's getting anyways. But like I chose to thank her for it, because like it was a gift for me to see like how like these things are at play, and it was like just something I got to participate in, and so I could see more deeply into. And so like instead of like being all mad about it or like butthurt, like I was like, cool, that was what I got to like experience. And like realizing that like freaking awesome experiences and exchanges, deep, profound, like intimate exchanges with others, like that feel good, like there's just as much value in that as there is in like something that wasn't like, it was the opposite of that, like that didn't feel allowing, that didn't feel inclusive, that didn't feel forgiving, that didn't feel like loving, that didn't feel welcoming, and all of that. And like so like it is just another expression of that, and how we create that. And so it was so great for me to see that and know that it's like all part of a whole, and it's just how we direct it. And so there's so much more to it too, and like that, it's just huge how things are loaded like that, how there can be so much energy packed into such a like a what seems like a little thing, but it can show and reflect like this whole entire like inner dynamic that we have with ourselves and each other, just through like maybe one, like illuminating like one pattern in a relationship. Like so that's how huge it is. And so yeah, that's just like what I wanted to share, because like, and I was still processing like some of it, because it was like, it's not like anything, I don't usually experience those kinds of things, like, and so it is tricky, like in a way, like speaking my truth, owning my voice, owning my energy, like being strong, being willing like to like offer another perspective, even if I'm the only one offering it, like in a group that is all the same and doesn't like what I have to say, like it's really interesting to be able to do that and not really feel so afraid anymore about that, or because I've done a lot of work the last couple months and weeks and years around that, where it just keeps getting easier and easier and easier. But even sometimes my voice still shakes when I speak, and sometimes I feel nervous still. But it's not as terrifying or almost as paralyzing as it used to be in a lot of ways. So it's getting easier to speak. But then now, since it is getting easier to speak and to show up and all of that, now it's learning how okay, what are the boundaries? What are my boundaries? What are the others' boundaries? And all of that. When is it me speaking my truth and standing in my power, and when am I maybe not honoring someone else's own ability and right and experience? So it's good to see that too. And so it's all good lessons, and it's all good alchemy. And so I feel it is freaking awesome to show up and just share and express. And I knew that there was a lot that was going to want to come out and be expressed. And summertime's all about that peak expression of the sun. Summer solstice is coming up, and on the 21st, in about a week and a half. And so it's the ascent of the sun. That's the peak light of the year. And so there's a lot into that. So if we can reflect and meditate on what the sun means, the symbolism of the sun, personally and collectively, and just individually, what it means to us, and how we are that sun, and how we're a part of that sun, and how that sun's a part of us. And so I'm just thinking about all that and how it relates to creativity and warmth and life, because the light of the heavens is a reflection of the light of the earth, which is life. And so we're all reflections of that light. We're the light of the earth because we are life. And so we're not separate from the sun either. So we're all one, all reflections, all different rays of the sun. And so I'll just leave it with that. I think, pretty much shared what I wanted to with that. And I feel if there's more later, there'll be more. And so thank you for listening, and I love you guys. And all right, wishing you well. Take care, and I'll see you again soon.